Travel Our Fam was good. We back again with another episode, y'all. Today we do have one of the homies, a good guest that's coming on the show today, my dog Kema the Giant. But anyways, it's good to have you on the show. I know you've been moving around, you're in a lot of different places as well, but it was good connecting with you. I think we locked in. We met in Brazil and up in Salvador, man. But it's just good to connect with you again. How you doing and where you at, man?
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks for having me, man. I'm doing good. Right now, I'm in Dar es Salaam. I'm in Tanzania right now. So yeah, I'm out here chilling for sure.
What's up, man? So I already understand, man. If I hear the call to prayer in the background going on, I know it's because you're over there in Ghana, man. Is this your first time over in Tanzania?
It is. It is my first time in Tanzania. So I hit Kenya. I was in South Africa for a while. I also hit Rwanda. So this is like my fourth, African country. But yeah, Tanzania. Yeah, Tanzania is definitely like, more of like the least developed, East African country I've been, you know what I'm saying? But it's also familiar, right? Going to like, let's say, for example, in Nigeria, if you go into like what we call like the village, a village is like, where, like the great grandmas and the great grandma stay. So it's more of like just like, underdeveloped, but not too much going on. But then boom, you just see paradise, right? So I think that's what gives like Zanzibar the allure. But for me, when I come into places, I want to see like what are the things really like out here. But I think my verdict is that, yeah, I'm sure Zanzibar is paradise for some people, but then again, it's a very underdeveloped country, right? So that was like my first impression. And then, I'm in Dar es Salaam right now, which is like it's like a 20-minute flight. Literally, the flight literally went up and I listened to like two of my piano songs and I was landing, you know what I'm saying? That's how
Yeah.
close it is. It's a 20-minute flight. More developed though. Dar es Salaam is a lot more developed. I could see like landing in Zanzibar, you don't see no tall buildings, like literally none. When you come to Dar es Salaam, you get to see like, okay, they got some city to it. It's a very familiar. In fact, I'm from Nigeria. I was born in Lagos. I can see some familiarities. I can see how things are going on here. But I'm here on vacation, so I'm not really expecting anything. Just to like chill, have a good time. So
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I went over there like right before the pandemic in 2019, before everything shut down, literally. So it's been a while since I've been over there, but yeah, Dar is definitely like
yeah,
city vibes.
that's
Yeah, so I had one of my homies is in the Peace Corps. So we did Dar es Salaam, was in the city for a few days, had a good time. And then we went down to the village, which was like an 8-hour bus ride. That was a
yeah.
whole adventure within itself. And so I got down to the village, and the village was way more remote, but it was chill, it was laid back. It's kind of like I compare it to like, say if you like leaving New York, but then you go down south to a little town and everybody like you see speak to you, the food good, the aunties is out there type stuff.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So in the places where you're gonna find some language barrier, you know what I mean? For sure,
Yeah, you
for
gonna get in that
sure.
phone like, bro, I don't know what's going on. But I was blessed though because my homegirl, she was fluent in Swahili, so she speaks the language.
Where's
Yeah,
she from?
yeah. She from originally from Boston. She's from Boston, was in the Peace Corps, but in the Peace Corps like gave her like the introductory course to kind of get them like conversational. But she kind of just kept going and she ended up becoming like fluent in it. And like really a lot of people thought she was from there. So, we be out there and I know like and a lot of times people don't notice, but one thing about Tanzania is also interesting is that you have a lot of people that are Christian, and you also got people that are practice Muslim, with Islam. And so, depending on where you're at, you know what I'm saying, the vibes can change. I know, like in Muslim culture, like the men are supposed to speak when they're doing business and stuff like that. So we out there, I don't speak a lick of Swahili. I'm just mamboing people to death, and like the dudes are looking at me to like make a choice. And I'm like, nah, you got to talk to her. That's the boss because I don't speak the language. So that was
Yeah,
always interesting when we was interacting with people.
smart, smart. You see, you know how to travel, man. You let the people that know the language speak because if you start speaking, things can get funny and expensive. That's the thing about anywhere you go. You know what I mean? And I always catch myself with that because I never know where to switch up, especially when I'm in Africa, because for the life of me, even when I'm in South Africa, people think I'm American. You know what I'm saying? Anywhere I go, people are American until I say, oh no. So like switch it up on them, like, I'm Nigerian. But at that point, like the perception is there, but they're like, but where are you really, and then they start, trying to like confirm. But the same thing is here too, man. Like, yeah, like with the taxes and stuff like that, you have to like, if they figure out like, especially like in Rwanda, if they figure out that like, you're foreigner, like things will get like, a couple of, maybe 2, 3 times expensive. And it's no different here. Like I've kind of like picked game here already. So it's always interesting to like experience that as travelers. Do you ever like, go through that where you like, all right, man, they taxing me because I'm a foreigner?
Yeah, the Gringo tax is funny because, you know, especially when you like, I think that's one of the big differences between people like when people reach out to me like, hey, like I'm looking for advice or something about traveling. Like one thing I'm gonna find out first is like, what are your intentions when you're going somewhere? Because this is a big difference between vacationing and nomading. Like if you nomading, like that means I'm there maybe for a month or so or even longer. I'm trying to figure out where the grocery stores is at. I'm trying to figure out where the neighborhood's gonna work, you know. If the Airbnb I pick is not up to standards, like then I gotta like shift my whole plans, pack my bag up, and find somewhere else to go. Right. So the stakes I feel like is a little bit more higher. So people that you know how it goes, you do it. So it's kind of like you got to be a little intentional about the things that you're doing versus like vacation. Like, well, we here for 4 days. If the Wi-Fi not that strong, will be all right, right? So what I learned is like, man, especially with the locals, like, yeah, it's not just that one transaction. Okay, for example, if I'm going to get beach chairs in Brazil, it's not that, you know, I'm gonna pay this extra like 10 reais they charge me, even though, you know, the locals gonna get it for, you know, 10 less. Is that over that month period of time, now you looking back at that bank account like, what I'm spending all this money on, but it's like all the little gringo taxes start to add up, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad. You know, it's funny about Brazil. I love Brazil, man. First of all, that's like my favorite place. I can't wait to go back. That's like my center. I'm glad I know a little bit of Portuguese. So all those problems I had when I first came, it's just laughable now, knowing that, yeah, if I go to Rio or anywhere and they try to charge me a certain amount for, we speaking Portuguese now, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, but it's always a learning experience. And for me, I'm not going to lie, I charge you to the game. I never let that fuck up my, you know, my vibe or like, I'll be honest with you, like on my way to Dar es Salaam, just because I got a lot going on, I'm trying to book a lot of flights because I'm going to be moving. I booked my flight from Zanzibar to Dar es Salaam for August 26th instead of July 26th, right? And well, actually, no, sorry, August 29th instead of July 29th. And I don't know how I did that. Literally, I kept looking at like, you know, I keep booking my stuff on trip.com and I'm doing those like short trips I book on trip.com. I kept looking at the damn thing and I didn't look at the dates. And I don't know, man. I feel like, you know, one too many times I've been in this situation. I'm like, how did I miss that? You know? And that's the thing about traveling, man. You have to be on your P's and Q's. Like, if you don't know, don't get your dates right, your flight time right, all those things in place, man, it's gonna get expensive. You can believe that. Yeah, I'm like, yo, I need to leave, you know, Zanzibar. I need to be in Dar es Salaam, like, right now, today. And they're like, yeah, it's gonna cost you. And something that I bought for like $43, man, they just said that thing cost me over $100 to get here. And I'm like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, and those are things I just like, you know, charge it to the game and it's like, you know, I never let it fuck up my, when I go to places, I'm not gonna lie, even if I'm going on vacation or I'm going as a nomad, the only thing I want to expect is good internet, right? In Zanzibar, that's why we didn't do the party in Zanzibar. I'm like, Zanzibar, we ain't gonna do nothing because that is trash. With Dar es Salaam, you can see that internet is great because if it wasn't great, it would be, you know, all kinds of shit. So if the internet is great and I can work, anything else, I'm approaching with an empty barrel, like surprise me. You know what I'm saying? I'll do my research, of course. I'm like, okay, these are top things to do. Woo, woo, woo. If I know somebody, then it's even better, you know, but if I don't, you know, find a way to make friends or find a way to go with solo. One thing about me is like, oh, you big guys, like, you know, when we're in places where you feel like we're not supposed to be, people just want to make friends with you out of curiosity, like, where you from? But you know what I mean? And that's enough for you. That's like, yo, that's it. I'm a walking icebreaker. Like, you know what I mean? Unless you're just like, you know, an asshole, right? But if you go into places that's all, bro, you're tall, where you from? That's your end. Whatever information you need to get from that person, try and get as much information because you never know. You know what I mean? So, and you just like gauge intentions, gauge how people are. You learn a lot traveling, man. You do learn a lot traveling. You learn about people, how to again gauge intentions, how to know who's looking out for you or not, you know, or who's gonna get you. And if they're gonna get you, what is your threshold? Like how far can you let them go just to get what you want? You have to know how to like, you know, sway yourself and then, you know, when to like dip out, you know. But yeah, it's been fun, you know, going through East Africa and yeah, just learning a lot because me growing up in Nigeria, we don't rate other countries. We just think like Nigeria is like the only, you know what I mean? So it's a privilege for me to like being able to like, you know, kind of like do it backwards now. You know what I'm saying? You know, touching East Africa first. I'm still gonna touch West Africa. I have some West African friends I'm gonna tap in with eventually. But starting with South Africa and, you know, all the way to Tanzania. It's been you know, look at South Africa being like the, you know, the gold standard, right? For reasons, right? Historically, but you see how that trickles down all to Tanzania. It's levels, you know what I'm saying? So yeah. So it's been cool. It's been cool so far.
So what's up, man? I know a lot of folks like, because I know I haven't been to South Africa, and it has always been one of those places that every time I see it, And I'm like, damn, I gotta get there because it
Never
just
been?
no, man. I have not, man. Like, what's the you say South Estate is the standard? Why do you say that?
It's the standard in terms of like, for me, what I expect Africa to be at, the level Africa to be at. From an infrastructure standpoint, from a structural standpoint, from just, the ease of access, ease of things to go. But then again, like, let's be careful now, there's still poor areas, there's still, underdeveloped areas, there's still places at risk, there's still social issues, all that stuff, right? But for me, I just look at infrastructure, man, like, the eye test, like, from the airport, boom, how to get to stuff. You go to Cape Town, places in Cape Town definitely feels like the hood. Because when you get to Cape Town, you're gonna see like the impoverished areas, right? And then when you keep going farther into the cities, when you're gonna see places that look like Germany, places that look like Netherlands, places that look like Miami, places that look like Africa, places that look like North Carolina. It just gives you everything. But yeah, but everything works there. Everything works there. If they do have like, there's this load shedding thing that happens in Africa. They probably do, but that's the least of the problems, honestly. But it's fun. Let's put it that way. It's fun. One thing I actually would give South Africans, they dress, they drip out like Americans. They look like, they look the part, they dress the part, and it's just a place to have a good time, man. And, you get to enjoy that. And then for me, if I come all the way back to Nigeria, I know like I'm coming, levels below when it comes to like, certain places I want to be in Nigeria as opposed to a place in South Africa. I mean, so yeah, just from an infrastructure standpoint and yeah, everything, like I can take a road trip from fucking, from Joburg to Cape Town if I want to. In Nigeria, I cannot do that because we have a huge security problem. Do we have beautiful places and things to do? Yeah, we can. But, when certain countries can't solve their security problem, I'm talking about like security in terms of like, you get stopped, you get kidnapped, you get robbed, like those are actual like real things that can happen, right? Yeah, that takes away from, a certain standard that you expect, to have from a country. But in South Africa, you're gonna be just fine.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the things, I've heard, in each place you go, like, it could be different, so it's like, hey, in certain places, like, you gotta look out for this or be ready for this, and, when I talk to, like, my Nigerian friends, they be like, "Yeah, if you go to the country, like, you're gonna have a good time, but make sure you tap in with somebody that's from there, so you make sure you straight and you be able to get around." I know you talk
Yeah.
about a lot of things as far as, like, 'cause you are the walking iceberg, so you got a lot of moving parts because you got Nigerian roots, and then I think you grew up in Charlotte, so, like, how did you put the pieces of the puzzle together for us, man?
In terms of like how I balanced it out or how I grew up in
How
general.
you grew up? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, I think being the fact that I grew up in a household where, I grew up in let me say like a middle class household in Nigeria. So in middle class household back in the day in Nigeria, that means that, you can afford to travel. Your parents can afford to put you in good schools. I'm talking about middle class, right? And that way, you're going to have, preview to a lot of things. You're going to be able to watch like cable TV and get introduced to like, different cultures, American culture, pop culture, all that stuff, right? So me growing up in Nigeria, I grew up, being familiar with, American culture, right? And then, my parents were avid travelers. My dad lived for a while, just like, in between different jobs. My mom was also traveling. She was a trader. So my mom is, so I grew up, my aunt, my uncles, they are well-traveled people. So, they tell us about their travels. They bring us a couple of things. So, it was one of those things where like we were used to like, and uncles traveling, out of Nigeria. When they come back, they bring it, certain little things with them that kind of like lets us know, okay, you don't know how those things affect you until you grow and you're like, oh wow, this is how I've been influenced by all these things, right? So before I left Nigeria, I was already familiar with these things. And then, I had the privilege of also, going to visit my dad in London. So I knew how to, I knew about, so when I came to America, like, and it was very like, honestly, like, all of a sudden, you know what I mean? I came as an immigrant, right? Shout out to my Aunt Liz, I love you. But yeah, she's the reason why, she brought, she actually brought two families, my dad's, my immediate family and my uncle. So she brought, I think, her two brothers to America. So that's like two families. And one family came to Atlanta and then we had to like leave and go to Charlotte because the other one was coming too, right? It happened so fast, man. Luckily for me, on my dad's side, see Houston. So in Charlotte specifically, I had an uncle who was already settled and, had things going on. So he was able to help us like settle in, so we settled in Charlotte just fine. And yeah, and I think that's when like a lot of like learning and all that, you always like, kind of dreamed of, you watch. It's like, okay, I'm here. So first thing was like, I guess my first litmus test was like college. Like, what's college going to be like? I've watched American Pie. I've watched, Stomp the Yard, Brown Sugar, all that stuff. Like, what's up? Like, how do I blend this, right? And honestly, so, I went to UNC Charlotte and it was exactly what I expected, At that time, UNC Charlotte was very black. Now I don't know what it is now, but it's a little different. But back then,
It's even blacker.
you know what I'm saying? It was very black and it was experience. I had cool roommates and I also was able to connect through soccer, through football. Cause first things Africans want to find where's the pickup game. How y'all go to the basketball, park or whatever to find a pickup game. Africans would go to the fields like, who's playing ball, who knows who. And I was able to build a community with that, not only with my friends in class, but also people I play soccer with. I found an African community in UNC Charlotte. And I just blended that together. And yeah, that was like, that was my experience, growing up in Charlotte. I made my best friend is Jamaican. My very other best friend is Nigerian as well, right? Those are my two best friends. And then I have other like, big brothers and friends that are all like, Cameroonians from Burundi, from Mali. Like Charlotte has like a deep African African American like community, right? So that helped a lot. That helped, me balance, balance my life, in Charlotte, right? And yeah, and then you live somewhere, long enough, you school there. I did my master's there. Like you watch everything like just change right in front of you, right? And then COVID happens, right? I'm just like fast forwarding, and then it's like you've always had this like, and before, it's funny thing, before I actually started like, being a nomad and traveling, I used to drive around America. Like I remember that I just bought this brand new Hyundai, and me and my best friend would drive to like South Carolina, Kentucky, would drive to fucking Louisville, we'd go to Boston, we'll go to like Portland. Like we've tried to like just go, we're just natural like explorers, like want to see what other places like outside of Charlotte. And I'm glad I had the opportunity to do that as well. And I was like, man, listen, man, the world is big, I've always been a big fan of Anthony Bourdain. I don't know if you know Anthony Bourdain. I used to watch this show, CNN called Parts Unknown, and I saw how like he was blending food and culture and stuff. I'm like, man, I want to like, when I had the opportunity, I just like, all right, I can make it work. That was it, man. I just started exploring.
Yeah, I think that was like one of the I actually lived in Charlotte probably around the same time. And I know we always joke now because I be looking at my threads and everybody was like, yo, that was the golden era of Charlotte. And looking back, it was like, like they had Music Factory was live, 935 was back then, the
Music
Epicenter was jumping.
Factory, Epicenter. I used to be a bouncer, bro. I used to be a bouncer for college. I used to bounce at Epicenter. Best times of
Right
my
there
life,
too. I used to
man.
bounce at Vault, man.
Come on, man. Right, bro. I used to bounce at Bubble, and I used to bounce at I used to bounce at Bubble, and there was the one that was there. Yeah, and I bounced a couple of places, like let my friends in, have fun. Like, I see I double A. Yeah, Charlotte did have a golden era, change. You know what I mean? I didn't know you lived in Charlotte. Actually, I know.
Yeah, I've lived in a few places, man. Like I got an opportunity. I went to school in North Carolina. I went to Shaw up in Raleigh. So, a lot of kids at Shaw were from Charlotte, from all over North Carolina. And then when I graduated from Shaw, I went down to Charlotte. I lived there for like 4 or 5 years. So I had like a lot of friends that I went to school with in the area. And I think that one thing I like that you said, because one thing I know about North Carolina, like it's a cool spot. I always say like if I was able to like raise a family, I'd probably go back to North Carolina. But one of the things I
Right.
noticed about Charlotte that was interesting was that it was kind of like the New York for a lot of Carolinians. So you got these kids who like, maybe come from these rural towns. They get to Charlotte and they be like, damn, like this is lit. And for me, I wanted to keep going. I'm like, cool, like this is lit, but I want to see more of the world. And then a lot of folks got there and it's like, yo, like Charlotte's my everything. And it's like, all right, cool, like I can see that, but I want to see a little bit more, man.
Yeah, what's funny though? Me and my homeboys. we used to go to Winthrop, you know what I'm saying? The Winthrop was like, oh, it was an all-girl school. We used to go there and they're like, yo, you want to come to Charlotte? You want to come to the city? You know what I mean? And then it used to shock me, like, you know, these are girls that probably like maybe from South Carolina or from like, you know, from Charleston, and then they come to Charlotte and they've not like seen the city before. And I used to understand that, oh wow, really haven't seen the city like that, you know? And they used to like look forward to like, you know, yo, you know, when you're gonna come, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna come to Charlotte. And I didn't know that at the time, like, oh, people like have not been, you know, it's one of the things like, and that's why I always try to like be very like careful. I mean, some people have not left Charlotte before. Some people have not left South Carolina before. Some people have not left like, you know, so everyone has their own little like culture shock when they get to experience things for the first time. And, you know, being the fact that someone like me that, you know, at the time, even at the time in Charlotte, you know, I'd seen other places and I'm like, well, Charlotte is like, okay, it's cool and all, but for some people it's like first time, you know what I mean? So it's just you said that like Charlotte being like, you know, like the New York for some people because they just haven't been, you know, to those places. So I was very aware of those things too, right? So
Yeah, I wasn't aware. I was an asshole. Like I was this kid that was coming from the Midwest, from a bigger city. So I'm like, this was your kid. But you know, after a while, I'm like, yeah, you country as hell. And it was like, but it is like you had to be, you know, like you got these, you know, Charlotte is the biggest city in North and South Carolina. So, you know, Fort Mill right there, right? And like you said, Winthrop is a 30-minute drive. So they come
yeah.
over, they ain't never seen nothing like this. Like, damn, like, okay.
Yeah, it was interesting. And then you have people that has never been to New York and never been to like this place and that place. And I don't know, I used to get, I'm not gonna lie, I used to struggle connecting with people like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, if you ain't seen all these places and how people live, like how can we connect? I'm not gonna lie. And that's when like maybe a little bit it started dawning on me that, you know, if I really want to like, you know, if I really just like want to connect with other people or like-minded people, like other people that traveled, then maybe you need to go out, you know, and travel more and, you know, see how, you know, people relate to that or relate to you. You know what I mean? Because, you know, you get tired of people like, yo, you been to New York? No. You been to this place? No. You been to outside of America? I'm like, yo, do you know what Nigerians would do for this passport? Do you know what people would do for this? How many countries you can go? And I always justify, like, if I'm going to pay X amount of money to go to LA, I can pay that same amount and be in London. So that's just me though. You know what I mean? So yeah. So you start to see like, okay, maybe there are not too many like minds around you. So maybe you should just go, you know, plug yourself somewhere. Go. I'm saying, and that's how I kind of like withdrew myself from Charlotte, you know, gradually. I still have my family there, my sisters in South Carolina, you know, my best friends around. I go just for my people, but just for Charlotte itself, yeah, I don't know if it's a place where, again, you're right. If you want to start a family and you want to, you know, have kids that go to good schools, that's a perfect place to plug in. But for someone who's just still exploring and doing stuff, yeah, there's nothing for you there, honestly. So
Yeah, man, I think that's a good point. I think it's also about we all get to a different place of growth, and I think you know, for me, it's always one of those things where it's like, okay, like I've always seen, like me, I've always been curious. I wanted to see different places, and that would kind of just level up as I went. But it wasn't, you know, something where like I've always been like one of those persons that went to explore. Like when I went to Shaw, I was from Ohio, so that was a 9-hour drive from home where I had to fly. And so boom, like I saw the South, and I was like, this is cool. Like food is great, you know, people are nice. And then from there, it's like I started traveling, and you know, you kind of build that confidence as you go. Like, what did your journey look like as far as, you know, you got young Kema at Charlotte graduating out here, ready to go, you know, get a job and, you know, get your 40 acres of meals, et cetera, whatever. And then, you know what I'm saying? It's a boom. Like now it's like, man, like you in East Africa road tripping and doing different things. Like, how did you get from there to here?
So first of all, speaking of Ohio, I have been in Ohio too. Yeah, I'm in Cleveland and there's nothing there. But that was when like, you know, I'm a LeBron fan. I'll follow LeBron anywhere. You know, so I'm a Philly fan now. Shit. You know? But it was nice, you know, seeing, I think I went to Detroit and then we hit, where's this place in Ohio? Besides Cleveland, there's a place in Ohio that's where's a common place? I had a friend who was a doctor there. Yeah. And when we go see him in Ohio, and then we just like took a trip to Cleveland. But yeah, Ohio ain't too much going on down there. I may be wrong, but like, yeah, it's nothing. I went to downtown.
You got to run it back. You got to run it back. You went downtown. Where else you went?
Nah, there's this like there's this speakeasy club downtown where like, you know, it's like a bakery and then you go into a club. I don't know where it is. It's close to like the Brown Stadium. It's like, it's a place downtown. I went to, I can't remember though, but yeah, me and my friends, like Yeah, we went there, went to the downtown. At the time, like Cleveland had just won a championship. So throughout downtown, they had like the banner. They had the witness banner there, right? And then they had like different, yeah, but that was it, bro. It was cold as hell. There was nothing going on. Then again, like, that's Cleveland though, but when you go to like the other side of Ohio, where like the football, where the Ohio football, the team is, what area is that?
It's in my
The
Columbus, using the capital, yeah.
Columbus,
Yeah.
Columbus. Like, damn, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Columbus. So we were in Columbus, but we thought let's go check out Cleveland too. Yeah, but yeah, back to your question about, when, I started like, I graduated and eventually like just found like, I mean, I want to say like, as far as like Charlotte is concerned or like, that phase of my life is concerned, I feel like I paid my dues, right? Because so if you lived in Charlotte and you don't have a bank job, then you just ain't trying to hustle. You ain't trying to make no money. You ain't trying to like, what I'm saying, feed yourself. Is you're working at Bank of America or Wells Fargo. Those are the two. Shout out to those two banks, man. If you're not working at those two banks, then you ain't trying to start a career or nothing, or you ain't trying to make no friends because everybody worked there. You know what I'm saying? I still have friends that work there to this day. But that's kind of like my, before I got to Bank of America, though, like I worked like different, in different industries. I don't damn near worked in insurance, investment banking. I worked for Vanguard in places, right? And then I stumbled upon Bank of America, which is like my, I had my a big, big time job, 32nd floor, it's like, damn, like, all right, this is I felt like a charlatan, like, okay, I do rather in Charlotte. You know what I mean? Like, when you like go all the way from, because UNC Charlotte, I'm not gonna lie, I was an English major, by the way, and now I have a career in tech, but, I was an English major, and the English major actually started all the way from Nigeria, right? I just didn't have the brain for math, right? So I've just been always been an artsy guy. I just think logically. I just never wanted to do math. So I started my degree in English because I loved to read at the time. And then I had done like 3 years of college in Nigeria. I was in university. By mind, I was like, 16, 17. And then when America happened, I came to America, my parents were like, nah, cause usually, mostly what will happen is like, when you come to Nigeria, you're still like 17, 18, you go back to high school. But Nigerians are like, we're very proud, like, hell nah, you just did 3 years of college and you about to go back to high school. Like, you a kid? I'm like, yeah, I'm a kid, you know what I'm saying? But my parents weren't hearing that. They were like, nah, you have to like, transfer your credits or whatever. So I usually stayed at home for a year. I was staying at home for a year. I learned how to like mow the lawn and all that stuff because my uncle like put us in Mint Hill. We're staying on a crib in Mint Hill. So he had none but land and everything. So I was just drive and mow the lawn and just like while away time, you know what I mean? Until Charlotte eventually took my credits. I only did like 2 years in UNCC and I graduated because I finished with English. I mean, with English, I didn't know what I was going to do, but eventually, let me tell you something, man. You know how this shit go, man. If you made a Nigerian, you fake it till you make it, right? But, how I got the bank job, it's no, I arrived, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, you do that for a while. I did that up until COVID, and then I just pivoted, you know. I'm not gonna lie, this traveling stumbled upon, like, it just happened, like, organically, right? It was, first of all, get a remote job, you know what I'm saying, that lets you work remote and then go from there, right? That's what I eventually did. I pivoted into tech. I got some, I had the privilege of having good friends around me to like say, hey man, try getting into cloud computing, right? So I got into cloud computing and the rest is history. You teach yourself, you get your certifications, and you give yourself a chance, right? And yeah, once I saw the benefits of that and being benefits of working remotely, then you want to, take that to the next level. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna give the sauce right now, but you know what I mean. Once I realized that, I could do that, then I felt like, okay, this is my one chance. I'm not married, I don't have kids. This is my one chance to really see the world the way I want to, the way I've always wanted to. You know what I mean? Where I don't have to have the burden of, just sitting at home working. I can take that with me. I can balance that, And I feel like a lot of people are on the side of fear with that. For me, I think it's the most rewarding thing ever. Like if I lose it all today, I know like, man, those right there are invaluable. Right. So that's how I was able to like, just like, get myself to this point.
That's a hell of a story, man. I don't think I ever heard as a recruiter. I recruit software engineers. I haven't heard of somebody come up from being an English major.
Right. Yeah. I eventually got my MBA, which is the most challenging thing I've ever done. I got my MBA, and I focused on like information technology. So I just, stat pad, like, I was already in the industry. In the bank, I was already working in the tech, it was already in the tech department. So I just wanted something to like, back me up a little bit. So I did my MBA and I focused in, information technology. Once you got the MBA on resume, they know you can do anything because you literally can do anything, right? You can consult, you can do whatever. So I think I had that. It was important for me to actually have that on my resume just to know that, all right, this English is not going to maybe go too far, even though certifications will, but I just felt like for me, I owed it to myself to get some kind of like higher learning. And I felt like the MBA will let me do that, especially in the industry that I was in. So, that kind of helped out.
So the sidebar, that's a good point you bring up because I know like a lot of people try to hop into tech and be like, yo, I'm just gonna get all these certs and stack them and then be like, oh, I need to tech. And I'd be like, as a recruiter, bro, like that's not really how that shit works, man. Like, you've got to have some legitimacy behind that. And sometimes it comes in the form and it's interesting because people like will look at me like, yeah, like I think the tech industry, especially with software engineers and look working at prominent companies, is driven by who you got the degree from and who you networking with. I'm just being real.
Absolutely. And that's honestly, what did I learn from MBA? People. I'm not gonna lie. I paid a lot of money to learn about people. And that's what I learned about. And that's why, sometimes you just understanding people and how to deal with people will keep you in a job than someone who's most qualified. You know what I'm saying? Man, I've been fired before and I've also survived, like layoffs. And I've been wondering like, damn, him over me? Like, I be going to him for like stuff, but you just never know. Maybe, and one time I asked like, and the people that, I'm like, damn, and in business school, that's the first thing they teach you the bottom line about people, psychology of people, right? So yeah. And then you imagine just knowing that you got to take that with you everywhere, man. You got to take that because people are literally your bottom line. It's who you know. It's who you know in this world now, especially in this day and age. It's who you know. So yeah, that's one thing I think I learned from business school, understanding people.
Yeah, that social capital was real, and I think it plays out, to how you move around the world because shit be going on. Life on life. You trying to work a job. You trying to, you're on a different time zone sometimes. You're moving through these different countries. The languages are constantly changing, right? So when you look at that, there's really like I look at it kind of like having like a knack, and I think that's the beauty about it. When you do, go out the country and you be somewhere like we got a cocktail bar, you end up talking to somebody that you don't know, but boom, 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 like it's like-minded people, so the conversation is just there, right? So, I mean, for you, you've been able to just move around and do different things. Your journey ended up taking you to Argentina, so I know you spent some time down there, right? And we just coming off the World Cup, so the World Cup just happened, you got Argentina, you've been there, you spent some significant time. What led you to Argentina, man?
To that again, what was the question?
What was it that made you decide to go to Argentina and what was your experience like when you got there?
I'm not gonna lie. It was me and my best friend that went to Argentina together. We went to Argentina because honestly, between Argentina at the time, it was during Christmas. We were trying to find somewhere to go. I'd been in Brazil for a long time, and I wanted to switch it up. And a lot of things that like personal stuff. I felt like I needed just like just to get away from Brazil. When Brazil can be a lot. You know what I'm saying? So I said like, all right, let me get out and unplug. More fortunately for us, it was between Uruguay or Argentina because they're both close to Brazil, right? And Argentina was just a cheaper option. And we really wanted to go see what's up Argentina because then again, like we've been hearing about this, like it's a racist country, whatever. And I just, for me, I never let that determine, my experience or how I experience places, right? I just want to go see for myself, you know what I mean? So, we did the numbers and Argentina just made more sense. I'm not gonna lie. So we're like, all right, let's just go to Argentina. And yeah, we're in Argentina for like 3 weeks. I think it was over 3 weeks. Yeah, it was over 3 weeks. And yeah, that's how I ended up there. And I'm time. Like, and me, because I'm a soccer fanatic too, I'm a big, like, we call it football. I'm a big football fanatic. I grew up on, knowing Argentinian football has been like a huge powerhouse. You know what I'm saying? When you speak of Argentina, like in the football world, when I compare that to like maybe basketball or like football. Argentina in basketball, in most cases, you can call Argentina like I don't want to say they're like I don't want to call them like the Boston Celtics because they're not like that, but they're like they're like Golden State Warriors. Who was the goal? Who was that? Mullins, the Mullins in them? Like, when they had that, did they win the championship? Or they never did, right? But they were a good
I don't
team.
think they did. Yeah, I think they were good. I don't know if they won it.
But what team in basketball, like a bunch of white boys that were good, but maybe never won a championship? Would you consider like, you know, or would you consider like maybe the Pacers, something like that? I mean, and isn't it like, I don't know if it's a good analogy. I want to try basketball, maybe closer to like baseball, but let's put this here. They were a fucking good team. Like when you talk about Argentina in football world, talking about like top five, top 10 every time, you know? And they had, this is the reason why I had this jersey, Maradona. Maradona is one of the most famous Argentinians, well, the Messi era, right? And, you know, growing up in Nigeria, you know, we were fascinated with these footballers, especially Maradona. We knew his story. We knew what he did. We knew how great he was. We knew he was on coke. We just knew like he was this character, this larger-than-life character. So a lot of us like, you know, followed Argentinian football because of Maradona, at least me, you know what I'm saying? Because before Messi, there was Maradona and everyone, you know, kind of revered him for that. And Argentina, they used to win. They used to, they used to play Nigeria a lot too. And we used to lose to them and we used to hate them. You know what I'm saying? But besides that though, all that compound, like I was just excited. For me, I was like low-key excited to like go see what's up Argentina. I know their local football team too, like, you know, the River Plate, the Boca Juniors, those two. When I'm playing FIFA, like, you know, I'll be like, you know, trying to get players from Boca Juniors, like I'm aware, you know, of Argentina when it comes to like soccer, right? And so that was enough for me to say, all right, man, I'm gonna go fuck with them. You know, I'm gonna go to Argentina. And when I went to Argentina, man, she looked like Europe. It was nice. You know what I mean? I thought I was in fucking Amsterdam or something. I'm like, wait, hold up. You know, this is Latin America. You know what I'm saying? I was blown away. And then I stayed like in the Palermo area. I think I was staying in the Palermo area, something like that.
Smooth over there. It's real smooth over there. Very, very vibey.
I was in Palermo and yeah, I was vibing. I'm not going. One thing I actually noticed though that they do a lot, they wear black a lot. Ironically, they wear black a lot, like black on black. That was the first thing. And I remember I spoke to a girl that, which, you know, she and I became friends or we became cool. And I've had a lot of arguments with her with this World Cup stuff because they just do some things. But she was one of the first friends, you know. I mean, I asked her, yo, why do you all wear black? She's like, because like they really move at night, like they're like bats. During the day, they don't do, you know what I'm saying? During the day, it's like, you know, regular shit, but at night is when they're like late, you know, they're like late night people, like when it comes to like party going and stuff like that. So they be outside at night and they wear black. The analogy made sense, I guess, because, you know, everything is pretty much late in Argentina in terms of like nightlife. So but everyone just wears black. So I'm like, I guess that's your thing, you know. But yeah, but now we're trying to couple that with like football. You know, I know you're gonna have questions about that. It gets interesting, but just from my experience, man, Argentinian steak, fire. Like the protein, the food, you know, just everything was cool. It was fine with me. You know what I'm saying? Just learning about Argentina. And again, one of my, you know, it was me also like, I've heard about, don't get me wrong though, I could be naive, but I've known about or heard about Afro-Argentinians, but I never really like spend much time on them or, you know, getting to know them, even before I came. So when I stumbled upon an Afro-Argentinian party called Festa Quilombo, bro, that was my culture shock. I was like, whoa, y'all get down like this? You know, like, you know, and that just became like my, you know, that whole thing, you know, me and my friends, like, we partying with them because that's our vibe, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, we start with that first and then we do something else, you know? But yeah, I was able to navigate around. I never had anyone, you know, like to my face be racist towards me at a restaurant, you know, act a certain way. If they did, I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I care because like, you know, when we go to certain places, like, you know, niggas like we're trying to like eat good and go to places. You go to certain places with a certain audacity. And I do that a lot. Even in Brazil, you gonna catch me in fucking, you know, in Sao Paulo, Itaim or fucking, you gonna catch me like the nicest places in Rio. That's where I'm gonna eat. Just so you know, like, you know, like we get down like that, you know what I'm saying? So I had that same audacity going to, you know, so wherever we went to the best places, I'm not gonna lie. It may be hard for maybe an Afro-Argentinian, right? But it's also a message that when niggas like us come to places like that maybe like, you know, predominantly, you know, white places to eat, no, that's what we're gonna eat. So not only do they have the best food, but I want them to see us, you know, like, yeah, you know, we belong here too. So that was like how I was able to like navigate Argentina. And I had the best time. Like I had a great time, you know? So yeah.
So, I mean, like I was watching some of your stories and I was like, damn, like this nigga King having a good time over there. I'm interested. And I've always been interested because it's kind of like, you know, Argentina, like you said, you got this soccer world powerhouse. But then also too, you got, things starting out of people on the internet, like, yeah, like this is one of the most racist countries in the world. And it's like, hey, for me, I've always just been, all right, cool. Like, let me go find out for my motherfucking self because I think it's important to do those things. Also, I think it helps, we're bigger guys. So in the world of the internet, one thing that I have learned is that I saw Obama do an interview, I think on the pivot. He was talking about that energy changed when you in my face. You not 6 out of 10, like you're not gonna call me the N-word to my face. Like let's just be for real. Like
It
I'm
does.
6'5", I'm 300 plus. Like and so I get that, but also understanding like when I went there, I was kind of on edge because I'm also like anticipating like, yeah, I'm gonna move around this audacity, but if somebody say something to me, we gonna check that. But did not have that experience. It was more similar to what you was talking about. So when you talk about, I think one of the things that has gotten lost in the sauce with everything is that people still forget that there are still Afro-Argentinians in the country. People there. So for you to be able to pull up and go vibe with them, like, can you just tell me, like, what that was like pulling up to a party that, you know what I'm saying, was us, you know what I'm saying, black people, like, what was that like and what was the vibes like?
So it was great, but I think I guess for travelers, right, and for travelers like us, I think one of the easiest things that we can do is like can get caught up in like how to find these parties or these situations. For me, the way I do is like I go to where you have the hippies. You know what I'm saying? You have the hippies, you have like you know what I mean? Like people that are just like, in the hippies, so you have the LGBTQ, you have the inclusive communities or inclusive places. If you go to the inclusive places, 9 times out of 10, you're going to talk to people and they're going to show you where all the other, you know what I'm saying, things are, things where, might be catered to you are. And that's what me and my friends did. We went to I can't remember the name of the place, but we went to this like, this bar or this spot and he just started from there. He went to this place and they were playing like, hip hop and all kinds of music. And, luckily for us, we did also stumble upon a YouTuber. His name is Black Man the Traveler. I don't know if you know him.
No,
But he's actually a great person that I feel like I will connect you with, and you need to like also get on your podcast. Great guy. He's British. Yeah, I'll say he's Black British, but I don't know if he's African. I want to assume that he is. If I do, maybe I forgot, but apologies for that. But he's cool. He's a cool dude. And I think he's actually married to Argentinian, right? So he's a Black British Muslim that is also married to Argentinian, and I think he has a family there as well, right? So he lives there. And we ended up meeting him at that party. And actually, my best friend said, "You do you know who he is? Like, he's a famous YouTuber, and all that, right?" And then we kind of connected with him. And I'm not gonna lie, the first thing he told us like, "Yo, don't get it twisted, motherfuckers racist out here." And we're like, "Damn, like we ain't experienced none of that." It was like, just be careful. So we kind of held that like, okay, that's the first brother that told us like what it is. So you're like, trust me, I live here. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, so once he told us that, again, ain't like we're expecting anything to happen. We just like, just wanted to let us know, like, as brothers, like, you saw that we're moving with that same audacity, but just wanted to like let us know, like, hey man, you can, you know what I mean? And then we became cool after that. We like asked him like, yo, should we be checking out and stuff like that? And, he gave us places to go. And that's when we found that Festa Quilombo. Like, oh, these places, they be here on maybe Thursdays and Fridays, so go check them out. So that's how we got the info from him, from a Black guy that lives in Argentina, married to an Argentinian, you know what I'm saying? And while we were there, we also met, we had the privilege of meeting another Brazilian, right? He's a Black Brazilian that also lived there, right? He also has like either a wife or a girlfriend that's also Argentinian that lives there as well. So it was kind of those places where like, we all kind of like all connected. And he also like, kind of from that, yeah, man, on Friday, go to Festa Quilombo, check this out. So that's how we got the info. And then once we went to that party, voila. It was damn near Afrobeats, dancehall, hip hop, everything. And it was all like literally 90% Afro-Argentinians. Me and my friends are like, I'll be damned. Like, ain't no way. And I'm saying, like, talking about like beautiful women, look like Brazilians, you know what I mean? Like, look a little bit like Brazilians and had different blends and they were of the culture, bro. Like, literally. They were of the culture, and I never felt more proud. I never felt more okay. I felt like all right for just for a little bit. I didn't feel like I was in Argentina. I felt like I was just in any other like you know what I'm saying any other place, right? And then we got to like got to know who the lady who organizes it, Queen Quilombo, and she's like, oh yeah, like we have a rich history. I'm not gonna lie, ChatGPT showed up like you down of Afro-Argentinians. Just give me a refresher. Every time I'm like okay, all right. All right, I get it now. You know what I'm saying? And she does have a friend who's actually Argentinian, Nigerian. And she, she does tour. She can show us like, all the areas and stuff like that. I just never had time to do that. But if I'm going to go back to Argentina, which I will at some point, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go see more of that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. And, as you keep exploring Argentina, you're going to see Haitians are there, Africans are there, people are there, Dominicans are there. You know what I mean? A lot of immigrants are in Argentina. Right. And yeah, so it was interesting to see like all the different ethnicities and different countries and different people that live in Argentina. Because I'm not gonna lie, I just thought like that place is just for Argentinians and Argentinians alone. I'm talking about white Argentinians. And then you go there, you see how diverse it can be. And you're like, oh, okay. You get to like kind of like unlearn a couple of things. And again, it's all about you experience Argentina is where you go, who you're experiencing it with, and like what you're doing. Just like every other place, right? And that's what I learned. That's what I learned about Argentina. It can be complex, right? Because Argentinians will tell you like, oh, we're all together, we're all one, we don't see color. But I feel like that's just that bullshit that they use to like, they really engineer people to actually think that they're the same. Nah, if you guys all want to, or one or whatever, then in me, I always bring it back to football because, I have a football platform and, I'm just all for like, the advocacy of, Black or immigrant or minority footballers, right? And I just feel like Argentina being a powerhouse, right, has not stepped up to the plate. They've not done that. You know what I'm saying? And that's been my beef with them. That's why I be hate watching them. And Maradona, if you go to Maradona's history, one of his closest friend was Pele, a Black Brazilian legend, right? You have Messi, who damn near has 500 million followers. What voice have you given to Afro-Argentinians, right? You ain't never seen that man talk nothing about, So I'm like, yeah, you're definitely not beating the allegations. And the whole football team, they had this player called Sebastian Veron. He actually played for my favorite club called Manchester United. Man, I don't think they champion that man. And I think he's probably one of the few Black players that played for Argentina. But they never speak of him. They never, I know he's doing his thing as a local or as a legend in Argentina, but there's certain ways you prop up your legends. You can see when other people, like other legends, show up with FIFA organizations or whatever, or events, they bring their legends and they don't bring Veron for a reason. There's a lot of things that I feel like, the Black people there are letting slide just because like they used to not having a voice. You know what I'm saying? So they rather say, man, I'm all for Argentina as a country and I love Argentina, but I'm like, bro, you gotta speak for yourself first. You gotta look out for yourself. So that's where it gets complex because even some Afro-Argentinians, I don't think they probably want you to like go there with them. But when, I live in America. And one thing I love about America is like we've been given that, liberty to like, speak our truth, speak, criticize racism and just have that advocacy like, man, we're not going to take shit. So when people see you move like that in certain countries, they're very cautious because, you're a visitor here. I have to live here, live with this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's where it gets a little complex, and you can see, and no bigger stage, right? That you show how racist some Argentinians can be than the World Cup and see how the fans are be treating people. You know what I'm saying? And if you look at all the videos in Brazil, man, Argentina and Brazil, they hate each other because not only are they like rivals, I'm talking about in everything, in soccer, I'm talking about Pele, Maradona, Brazil has 5 World Cups, Argentina trying to get 2, and then when they clash a lot, you know what I'm saying? But it's just like, it's very telling when you look at all the videos after they lost, right? All the Brazilians celebrating, all the Argentinians like fighting and, throwing racial slurs. And you can see all that in the World Cup, how they were getting down in America. Like, they move with this audacity that they can just like spew, racial slurs and think they're going to get away with it because they feel like they can get away with it in Argentina, right? But it's not. I think the world is up on that nonsense, right? And a lot of Argentinians want to argue about that. They like deflecting a lot. Or what about this? What about that? It's like, we're talking about you. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about you. And that's just been my problem with them. And that's why I feel like, damn, a country that I've been to and I didn't experience that, like this is how y'all really, or some of y'all really get down, So that's when it gets complex for me,
That's what I like that because at the end of the day, like I think that's a real thing. One thing about the World Cup, it's gonna show you how racism and colonialism has affected the world. Man, at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, we look at like the final 8 teams, and the majority of these European teams is nothing but Black people. Look like a damn USA basketball team. So you see this, I'm like, God damn, France, 24 out of 26 is Black. England the same way. And I'm just looking like this is insane. Like how many black people are playing for these European nations. But it also goes back to like how things are made, right? We understand how the shit work. You know, they colonized everybody, took all the resources, used it for themselves. And we looking a few hundred years later, and it's still that way because the biggest thing with sports is that if you have the facilities, the power, and the money dynamic on, you're gonna attract the best and brightest, and you're gonna play with those teams. How do you feel about niggas playing for these European nations? I know it's tough because yes, you got your, you know, you got some folks that just, I'm gonna go get this bag and play like a Premier League or something like that and play for a club because I know it's just better for me and my family. But then ultimately, when you talking about repping your nation, like why is it that so many African players are choosing to play for these European teams or even black players in general, man?
First of all, and that one too can be complex, but it can also be simple, right? I think it's just, first of all, if you are that good of a player, right? Like, look at Joel Embiid. He can easily go play for goddamn Cameroon, but he played for US, right? You know what I mean? We can make all this kind of, it's just like, man, if you, when you've, first of all, when you were born in a certain country and you grew up in a certain country and you've established yourself in a certain country, right? And you want to play and represent not only your country, but yourself at the highest level in sport, you're going to pick the country that gives you the best chance to do those things, right? And that's why I don't, you know, I'm not mad at most of those players because they just, you know, they're just a product of their circumstance, right? And most of the times, you know, it could be a good and bad one. I'll give you an example. Like Morocco, damn near all the players were not born in Morocco, FYI. They were born either France, Spain, or Netherlands, right? But Morocco is one of the best teams, if not the best in Africa, right? But they were just not good enough to represent, you know, the European countries. So they said, like, fuck it, we're going to go represent. You know what I mean? But they got all their training. They trained. They probably went to the same academy with all these other guys in Germany and Netherlands or whatever, but they just were not good enough. Or some of them actually just had a sense of duty to the country. So some of these players, right, because they've been exposed to, you know, a certain level of, you know, a certain level of football that they've been playing either like locally in France. Like someone like Mbappe. Mbappe played for Monaco, played for PSG. PSG is the biggest team in France, right? It just did not make any sense to like say, you know, I'm gonna go represent Cameroon, right? Now, it just made more sense for him to like represent France, and so does every other player that represents his country. For me, I like that. I'm not gonna lie. I like the representation of it. I like the representation because it says a lot about France itself, right? You know, it says a lot about how France, you know, sees and maybe respects its players. Does that mean that France is a less racist country? Hell no. You know what I mean? But when it comes to football, at least they're giving niggas a chance. I'm not gonna be mad at that, man. They're not beating the allegations either as well. Like they're all colonials and whatever. When it comes to sports, they're gonna field the players that feel are the best, you know, at what they do at that sport. They're not gonna say, oh no, let's go let the white guys play because, you know, we don't want. Nah, they're gonna put the best players, right? And that's one thing I feel like Argentinians fail to do. But the reason why also these guys, it's easy for them to choose these countries is because I'm gonna use Nigeria as an example. Nigeria, we're a fucking corrupt country, bro. Saying we're not doing right by ourselves and our people. You know what I'm saying? So why will I want, you know, why will a player who's already used to like this certain level not come all the way down and, you know, represent Nigeria out of a duty to his country? And in return, he's not even treated fairly. He's not getting taken care of. I'll give you an example. Like a lot of Nigerian players, they be playing for free. You know what I'm saying? They play for free. They be buying their own kits. They be paying for their own hotels. Come on now, you're not going to hear that shit in France. You're not going to hear about that shit in England. You know what I mean? Like that's embarrassing. And this is a country that has the funds to do that. You know what I mean? Like, especially Nigeria. Like the Nigerian Football Association, they do have enough funds to take care of these players, put them in the best hotels, you know, get the best field, get it, but they don't put them in the best situation. And when you're a guy like, I'll give you an example, like one of the guys that plays for England, he also plays for Arsenal, Bukayo Saka. He's Nigerian. He goes home to see his family in Nigeria. Would he love to represent Nigeria? Olise, one of the guys that plays for France, one of the best players in France, his parents are Nigerian, right? I can name a starting 11 of Nigerians that can win the World Cup right now. You know what I mean? If they play for Nigeria. But they're not going to go because like, you know, there's, you know, and then when you're a guy who's like a 100 million pound player, like, come on now you're looking at like my safety and my career. I go play in Nigeria and I'm not getting taken care of by the best, physicians and medical staff. I run a risk of, losing my career, losing money because they're big clubs that want to that invested in me. They're not even gonna let that happen. I'm not gonna lie. Like Mbappe right now, they'll be damned. He plays for Real Madrid. If you say I want to go play for Cameroon, man, you're out your mind. Like, bro, you know what I'm saying? Like, you are a prize player, so it's just not in your best interest. So that's how a lot of players find themselves in this situation because the team that actually, pays their bills and, has a cure is the clubs. Country is just, it's a duty, right? But then if you're going to represent your country, you also need to do right by the players. These players just do it out of love. So I got to respect that. Like the only countries I feel like maybe are taking care of the players are like Senegal, right? Morocco, yeah. But Nigeria, hell no, man. They're not doing shit by the players. So any player that goes to Nigeria, most of them grew up in England. Most of them play in Premier League. Most of them play in Europe. But they come back because, like, first of all, I'm coming back as a duty, right, to my country. And there's a little bit of them like, you know what? They probably represented like England or Netherlands at under 17, under 18 when they were actually, because you live there, right? When it comes to like, okay, your senior career, you guys are, I'm going to go home. I'm going to go to Nigeria. It's like the low-hanging fruit, right? And you can't be mad at that. You know what I'm saying? But don't get it twisted. If they had choice, hell yeah, they're going to play for the country that, puts them in the best situation to play the best football, right? And that's where I feel like Africa as a continent lacks. Like we have a lot of work to do on that. Morocco is already leading the charge. Morocco, Senegal,
Egypt,
but I feel like a
Senegal.
lot of, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, so we can do right by this. If we can have a good infrastructure around football, man, that would change. That would definitely change. You know what I mean? So that's the reason why a lot of black players do play for other countries. And we can't be mad at that. We can just like, cheer them on. You know what I'm saying? But there's this little like, damn, if things were a little different, you know what I'm saying? But we know the history too, right? Colonialism, all that stuff. So it's just a byproduct of that.
Yeah, and I think, it's kinda hurts because, for me, like, I grew up in the States, man, so my thing is, like, my grandmother is from Selma, Alabama. Like, she experienced racism firsthand, but then her generation, was the ones who marched so that we could walk, And, see those things, and now we had the conversations about, like, "Hey, top 5-star recruits going to HBCUs." I'm always gonna advocate for us doing black things, right? That's just me, right? But at the same time too, like I'm not well versed in, saying soccer at the world level. So, when you look at like these different things that are happening, like when I see them, like, God damn, like these are all black teams. Like, what is going on? But at the same time, it's like, okay, like, yeah, like when you see it, like Cape Verde was the comeback story of the year was like an island nation this small out of Africa with the majority of the players being from there playing for them and making it that far in the World Cup, who took Argentina to the,
Bro,
to the brink.
bro,
You know what I'm saying?
talk about it, man. Like one of the players got recruited off of LinkedIn, bro. Is Irish. Is Irish. He's Irish Cape Verdean, bro. That's how crazy this World Cup has been. Like, and there were even a lot of players. If you look at Morocco, there was a guy who you thought maybe like had a chance of representing France, and like, all right, you can make. He's a good player. Like, talking about like $100 million player. I'm going to Morocco, like, right? Because you get to represent the World Cup, you get to represent your country or play in the World Cup maybe only once in your lifetime. You never know because every 4 years, right? So these guys, you got to take that chance. Congo, a lot of them players are British. Most of them are British. Most of them played for Manchester United. Most of them they know this guy. Like, this is like, but again, like when you realize that, first of all, I really want to represent my country, and I already know that I don't have a chance of making, the maybe the country I'm naturalized in. It doesn't make sense. It does make sense. Some players wait it out. Some players don't. I'm like, nah, I'm going to go represent. So I hope that in the future, right, we get to have like, a Messi or Ronaldo that says, fuck it, I'm going to represent Nigeria. I'm going to represent Cameroon. I'm going to represent Senegal. I don't give a fuck. This is where I want to, it's always refreshing because, that's a big ticket player, right? You want to have like, a guy who has that star power to represent, or a bunch of players who have star powers to represent the African countries. But on the other side, these African football federations need to do right by them and take care of them, because it just needs to blow my mind when Nigerian players are talking about how bad the hotel is, how they have to like, clean their own. Like, come on, man. These are guys that like, when they go back to their clubs in Europe, they damn near like, they're chauffeured, you know what I'm saying? They fly private back.
Yeah.
And then you come back and we have to deal with this shit, you know what I'm saying? So it's telling, it's very telling. And it's just a result of corruption. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of corruption going on. So this guy didn't even bother, and I can't be mad at them. But you're right, man. Like, you're really right. Like, sometimes I wonder what could be, especially Nigeria. Bro, we got Nigerians that play for Austria, bro. Play for Switzerland, bro. We're everywhere. I'm telling you right now,
You
there's
ain't
gonna be a
lying.
Nigerian. There's gonna be a
Y'all
Nigerian
between
gonna
Nigerians
play
and
for
Haitians, y'all be
Nigeria.
everywhere, bro.
We're everywhere, man. The Japanese goalie, the black guy, he's Nigerian, bro. Came back home with they were like kissing the ground. He was walking. They gave him an honor and everything. Nigerian, black Nigerian, bro. Mexico, I'm bringing this back to Argentina. In Mexico, can have a Afro-Latina on their team.
Yeah.
Colombian. He's a Colombian guy, right? And he spent all this time in Mexico. If they can have that, the fuck you talking about Argentina? Come on, man. What we doing? What are we doing? You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, I was in Kenya watching the final, and bro, like, it was like the whole country, it's like the whole continent wanted them to fail. And that says a lot about, you know what I'm saying, Argentina. And for me, I just have spice for them because they're just too big of a country, and also, of a footballing country to be moving like that. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know, man. I just feel like it's also one of those countries I feel like they're never going to until something does change. And those things can change simply. You have to look at who's the person that you guys revere. You know, Argentina, they got statues of Messi everywhere. Before, I'm sure it's Maradona, but now it's Messi everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So that lets me know, like, that's your voice. So if that voice just changes the narrative a little bit, do you know how many lives are going to change? I mean, that's where I stand on, when we're navigating through this world and we're seeing how, in Brazil too, like Brazil, one thing I love about Brazil, right, is that they fought so much for humanity and democracy that they don't take that shit for granted. Man, you go on some racist, homophobic shit, you go in jail. You in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Do they still have shit that goes on systemically, how they treat, people in the favelas and stuff like classism? That's still fucked up. You know what I'm saying? That shit needs to be fixed. But they fixed what they could, and you can see how they, the little things that they fight for, they cherish it a lot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, but when you look at a place like Argentina, it's like, the Afro-Argentinians just don't have enough voice because they've done a good job taking that away. It's like, nah, we're going to take that voice away. We're going to blend that with everybody else. Nah, fuck that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, football can be very interesting, bro. Like, if you pay attention to like football, man, and you kind of like compare it to like, or you mirror it to like with these countries and how, certain players are being represented or how people are being seen or how the fans react. You're gonna learn a lot about these countries. You know what I mean? So wait, people wait for the World Cup because World Cup is but it's just funny, like, I'm sure you've been to like most of these countries that have been represented, you've been to these countries, so it's not surprising to you when you see how, certain things are being, people are moving, right? But the one that keeps confusing people is Argentina. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing, though. Nobody's surprised by France. Like, we know what time France is on. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's surprised by Germany. Like, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of integration and stuff, but when you look at, Argentina, it's just something about it that it's not clicking. You know what I mean? They're a great football team, but yeah, it's like niggas and racism and you're like, what is going on? Like, something is not clicking. But they'll tell you like nothing is wrong. They have benefits, they have all that stuff. They're good. Come on, man, stop. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I'm always hard on them. My Argentinian friend, she and I just been going back and forth, and we just got to the point where like we just gonna agree to disagree because I feel like you've been conditioned a certain way based on your arguments. You're trying to point fingers and stuff like that. Let's look at your president, and how he's representing y'all. There's a lot to say about that, and there's a lot of people that benefited from it than others. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
It's good to have those conversations, and it's not that, one thing ain't about it is like we can't go into conversations thinking we're gonna change somebody's mind. All we can do is like respectfully say what we gotta say. Because at the end of the day, it's like maybe that person, it's a lot for them to digest at one time. But then they might
Yeah.
go back and be like, hey, I was thinking about something you said. Okay,
Yeah.
I can kind of see where you're coming from, whoop, whoop, whoop. And I think that's why, my biggest thing and concern when I saw like things went up on the internet, because I've talked to several people that's been to Argentina, and I obviously went for my own stuff and I stayed there for a few days. I do want to go back. But one thing I did see was like, damn, like it's so easy to get caught up in this matrix of the internet to where like one opinion is being told, but that may not be everybody's experience. Because it's like, it's even funny when I look at it, some of the women I've talked to that have gone down there, they've had a totally different experience from like versus like guys like me and you. And so it's always interesting just to see the different perspectives you get while being there, but also understanding is like, yeah, like there was nobody waiting for me with a pitchfork when I got off the plane and ready to hurt me. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
But I
Facts.
also understand too, like you said, that there are Black Argentinians that live here that don't have the same, you know what I'm saying, implications that I do when I'm moving through this country. And that's one of the things I think I saw that was very different from Brazil because, like, let's be honest, both countries did try Blackamento. They tried to bring in Europeans to their race, Black and African culture out of their, you know what I'm saying, their societies, right? You see, Argentina was a lot more successful at that. Brazil, I think they just had way too many people of African descent. It's the blackest country outside of Africa, right? And so with that being said, we fast forward the clock 100 years later, when we go look at the football team in Brazil, it looked like us. And then Argentina looks like, you know, it's copy and paste from Europe, right? So yeah, like, and when you put it there, it's like it's funny. I think that's the biggest thing that's concerning is like, don't get it twisted. Like, I think that Argentina is a place that we as Black people should go check out, and we should support people that look like us down there because they are down there and they're going through their own movement within themselves. But then also too, like we can hold them accountable at the same damn time, like you just said.
Exactly. Go down there, learn, support the Afro-Argentinians. Go see for yourself, man. Ain't nobody gonna come out the gate like, be racist towards you, none of that. Like they don't move like that, you know what I'm saying? I think the racist ones, they know when and where to show up. When you're in a big stadium and your country's playing their country and they're losing or whatever, they're gonna show you what time it is. They're gonna be disrespectful. But those small, you know, community of people don't speak for a whole country. You know what I'm saying? I feel like there's a lot that you can learn from just going to Argentina, right? Yeah, it's a nice country to be in. It's a nice country to go. I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, I had a good time, but maybe because again, I was able to craft my own experience where I was chilling with a Brazilian. My best friend was with me, navigating and meeting people, and we're making friends, and they were curious. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's one of those things where like you just don't let social media just dictate how you're gonna, like, some people right now, just based on what is on social media, they don't like crush Argentina from there. And you can't do that. You're gonna cheat yourself from, you know, an amazing experience. That's Patagonia right there. Like, you know what that is? That's like going to the end of the world. Like, the things you can go experience, like, and go do, and just be in your own, be in your own world. But and you'd be surprised like how inspired a lot of Black people in other countries, they get inspired by American, like African Americans, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna lie, African American culture, it's leading. It's like that's the culture, you know what I'm saying? That's the culture, because that's the culture that has all the information, has, again, the charisma, the music, the audacity, the voice, you know what I mean? For you to be inspired. I can see how, like, I'm not gonna lie, when I go certain places as a Black man, even in Brazil, like, one time I went to a restaurant, me and my friends, and again, we were like, them they're the only niggas in there, and they came to me, like, yo, are you guys like, you guys are one of the rappers, like funk rappers? I'm like, nah. Like, what? You know what I'm saying? Just look, just think about that for a second, like, just how they see niggas. Well, I said, nah, man, like, let them know, like, this is who we are. And they be like, wow, you know what I'm saying? You'd be surprised how, like, shocked they are, or how surprised they are, like, that people like this can actually come to these spaces or belong in these spaces. You know what I'm saying? You don't know how much, you don't know how much that means. I've been to restaurants where, like, even the Black people that work in the back just come and peep and look at us like, wow, like, oh, wow, they here for real. You don't know what that means, man. You don't know what they're gonna take that with them. You don't know how that's gonna affect them. And when you travel, it's a lot of reasons, man. It's a lot of reasons, and you'd be surprised that you just a walking inspiration, to just let somebody know, oh wow, I can be in this situation one day. I can do these things, because most of them, man, they've been in such situations where, like, their voice are taken from them and they feel like they don't belong. But when they see us coming and when we barge the door in, like, what's up? Like, we here, like, okay, nah. There is hope. And that goes a long way, man. It does. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Again, if you want to go to Argentina, and you want to know how to navigate, shit, hit me up. I'll give you tips and places to go as a Black person, and I'll tell you where to go, where you're going to feel seen and belong and have a good time. Things to do. You need good food. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's the thing. People go to these countries, and they don't do like their homework. They don't do the needful. Like I said, I had a little idea of what I was going to do in Argentina. Where to go, where to stay. You just go there and just like, get lost. Like, no, like know a little bit of, get some, get some information and then, make that decision. You know what I'm saying? And you're going to be A-okay anywhere you go, so.
I appreciate you hopping on today with us, man, and just sharing. I think it's been a great conversation and much needed conversation about just moving through the world in general, not just Argentina, but just being able to how to move through the world. And I think, we as Black people, like you said, like just being, Black folks out in the US, man, it's certain ways that when we ask each other something, we're looking for recommendations based off of like, hey, we understand like how to move through this world. So definitely appreciate that. Kima, where can the folks find you if they trying to tap in on you, bro?
Man, tap in with me, Kema the Giant on Instagram. If you wanna, get into football and you're a football fan, I know the World Cup just ended. But I do have a football page called Ranchester. I'll be talking about not only football reactions, but different news surrounding football, and that should be fun as well. So you can catch me either Ranchester or Kema the Giant on Instagram.
I'm gonna definitely tap in because like this World Cup got me like just I gotta learn some more, but I'm interested in
Now you
soccer
get
now.
to
So
follow these players. You get to follow them to like the different clubs and see how they're moving, how they performing, how they doing, how they living. It's cool. Like so that's like the new thing I started doing. So the season is about to start. I just took a little bit of time off because it's a World Cup. I'm gonna get back at it because I do talk about transfers and this place is going, what club is going, who's paying for this and that. So just a lot of banter, a lot of fun. So if you're into soccer, tap in with me.
it's better, man. We appreciate you hopping on the show today. Travel on, fan. You got it. Until then, y'all, the world is yours.